Ladies and gentlemen, there comes a moment when we realize that life is not what we thought it to be. It's as if the ground shifts beneath us, revealing a new layer of understanding, one that alters us forever. Today we'll explore those pivotal lessons that, once learned, leave us never the same. The first of these lessons is the illusion of control. We spend so much time planning, organizing, and worrying as if life could be neatly tucked into the confines of our expectations. But life, by its very nature, resists such confinement. The harder we try to control, the more we feel its wildness slipping through our fingers. And yet, it's in this very act of surrender, in letting go of the reins, that we find true freedom. We are part of a dance, one where our role is not to lead, but to move in harmony with the unpredictable rhythm. Then we come to understand impermanence. Nothing stays the same. Not our bodies, not our relationships, not even the seasons. Everything is constantly shifting, like sand dunes resh. We spend so much time planning, organizing, and striving to mold life into our desired shape. We seek security in the predictable, comfort in the known, believing that if we hold tight enough to the reins, we can steer our lives exactly where we wish. But in our desperate clinging, we fail to see that life in its essence is beyond our grasp. It moves like the ocean, with waves that rise and fall, currents that shift without warning. The more we resist, the more we struggle against the natural flow of things. To truly live is to let go, to surrender to the mystery and unpredictability of existence. This doesn't mean passivity, but rather a deep trust in the unfolding of life. When we cease the futile effort to control every outcome, we open ourselves to the possibility of discovery. The beauty of this realization lies in the freedom it brings. No longer do we exhaust ourselves with the burden of managing everything. We move with life rather than against it, allowing it to surprise and teach us in ways we could never have imagined. In this letting go, we find that what we once saw as chaos is, in fact, harmony. The universe operates in a perfect, unknowable order, one far beyond our human understanding. By embracing the uncertainty, we become part of that flow, liberated from the constraints of rigid expectations. Life, in all its unpredictability, becomes not something to be feared or controlled, but something to be lived fully, deeply, and with joy. Nothing in life is fixed. Everything is in constant motion, from the grand sweep of galaxies to the quiet passing of a moment. We often cling to the things we love, to the people, the experiences, and even to our own identities, hoping to preserve them forever. Yet the more we grasp, the more we realize that nothing can be held onto. Life moves like a river, endlessly flowing, and no moment, no matter how beautiful, can be frozen in time. This realization can be unsettling at first, knowing that everything we cherish will change, that every form will eventually fade. But within this truth lies profound beauty, for it is precisely the impermanence of life that gives it meaning. A flower blooms and withers, yet its fleeting beauty touches us in ways that a permanent thing never could. A moment shared with a loved one, brief as it may be, becomes precious because we know it cannot last. When we accept the impermanence of life, we begin to see each moment as a gift. We no longer take for granted the people we love or the experiences we have. Instead, we embrace them fully, knowing that they are here for a time and then they will be gone. It teaches us to live more mindfully, to pay attention to the present, and to find joy in what is rather than what we wish could be. The lesson of impermanence doesn't just apply to the external world, it applies to us as well. We are not static beings. We too are changing, growing, evolving, moving through the phases of life. Our thoughts, our beliefs, even our sense of self are not fixed. And this is a powerful realization because it frees us from the need to be anything other than what we are in this moment. To live with the awareness of impermanence is to live in harmony with life's rhythm. It allows us to release our attachments to the past and our anxieties about the future. Instead, we learn to flow with life, appreciating each experience for what it is without trying to make it last forever. In that acceptance, we find peace. In the midst of our busy lives, we often overlook the most precious thing we have this very moment. Our minds constantly wander, replaying the past or worrying about the future, while the present slips by unnoticed. We live as if we are preparing for some grand moment yet to come, unaware that life is happening right now in this breath, in this heartbeat. When we learn the power of presence, we awaken to the fullness of life. It's like wiping the fog from a window, suddenly seeing clearly what was always there. The mind quiets and the world around us becomes vivid, the colors richer, the sounds sharper, the sensations more live. In presence, even the simplest acts take on new meaning. A conversation becomes deeper, a walk outside becomes a dance with nature, and a moment of stillness becomes an ocean of peace. This is not just about mindfulness or paying attention, it's about realizing that the present is all we ever truly have. The past is a memory, the future is an idea, but the present is real. It's the place where life unfolds. When we live in the present, we stop postponing our happiness, waiting for some future moment when everything will be just right. Instead, we find that everything we need is already here. In presence, we let go of the stories we tell ourselves about who we are, about how things should be, and instead we simply are. We experience life directly, without the filter of our judgments and expectations. And in that direct experience, there is a kind of peace, a calm that cannot be disturbed by the ups and downs of life. By being fully present, we open ourselves to life's endless richness. We see the beauty in the mundane, the extraordinary in the ordinary. We stop rushing, stop resisting, and start living, really living. Life, in its infinite complexity and simplicity, becomes a gift, and in the awareness of this gift, we find a deep contentment that no future achievement could ever provide. We often walk through life wearing the mask of identity, a collection of roles, labels, and ideas that we've accumulated over time. We cling to these concepts of who we are, the successes, the failures, the opinions, the images we project to the world, believing that they define us. But the more we invest in these identities, the more we are confined by them, trapped within the boundaries of who we think we should be. The ego tells us we are separate, that we must protect and build up this sense of self at all costs. It seeks approval, validation, and a sense of superiority or worth. But what we don't often realize is that the ego is fragile, always seeking more to sustain itself, yet never truly satisfied. It fears loss, judgment, and change because these threaten the very structure it has built. However, when we step back from this limited sense of self, when we learn to detach from the ego, something remarkable happens. We begin to see that we are not these roles, not these fleeting thoughts or emotions. We are something deeper, something more fluid and expansive. Our true nature is not bound by the labels we wear. In fact, the more we detach from the need to defend or uphold the ego, the more we discover a freedom that was always there, hidden beneath the surface. Detachment from the ego doesn't mean we lose our identity or sense of individuality, but it allows us to move beyond the illusion of separateness. We stop seeing ourselves as isolated beings and begin to recognize the interconnectedness of all things. We become less concerned with how others perceive us and more in tune with our own authentic nature. In this space, life flows more effortlessly. We become less reactive, less caught up in our desires and fears. Instead of trying to control how we are seen, we start to live from a place of inner peace. Our sense of self becomes flexible, able to adapt and grow, rather than rigid and defensive. We no longer need to prove ourselves because we understand that there is nothing to prove. Life becomes less about acquiring and more about experiencing, less about being someone and more about simply being. And in that simple being, we discover a profound sense of connection, both to ourselves and to the world around us, free from the ego's demands. Suffering is something we naturally resist. We do everything we can to avoid it, to push it away, or to numb ourselves from its sharp edges. Yet, despite our best efforts, suffering finds us all. Whether through loss, failure, illness, or the quiet pains of everyday life, it is an unavoidable part of the human experience. But rather than seeing suffering as something to escape, what if we viewed it as a teacher? In the depths of suffering, we are often brought to the raw core of ourselves. It strips away the illusions we hold about life, the comfortable stories we tell ourselves. In those moments of pain, we are faced with our vulnerability, our mortality, and the transient nature of everything we know. And while it may feel like the ground beneath us is crumbling, this is also where the most profound transformation can occur. Suffering has a way of waking us up, of breaking through the surface layers of our existence to reveal deeper truths. It forces us to confront what truly matters, to reconsider our priorities, and to recognize the things we take for granted. It humbles us, reminding us that no matter how much we strive for control or perfection, life will have its own way of unfolding. But perhaps the greatest lesson suffering teaches us is compassion both for ourselves and for others. When we experience pain, we begin to understand the pain of others. It softens us, makes us more empathetic, and more connected to the shared human experience. In this way, suffering can open our hearts, allowing us to feel a deeper sense of unity with those around us, rather than running from it. When we embrace suffering as a teacher, we learn that it is not an enemy to be fought, but a guide to be listened to. It invites us to grow, to evolve, and to see life from a new perspective. It asks us to surrender, not in defeat, but in acceptance of the full spectrum of life. Pain, as difficult as it may be, is often the seed from which our greatest wisdom grows. In suffering, we find resilience. We discover parts of ourselves we never knew existed, the strength to endure, the courage to keep going, and the clarity that comes from facing our fears. And when the storm passes, we emerge not the same as before, but deeper, wiser, and more in tune with the essence of life itself. Suffering, then, is not something to fear, but something to learn from. It holds within it the potential for profound change, the kind of change that shifts us at our very core. Once we understand this, we begin to see suffering not as an interruption of life, but as an integral part of our journey toward greater understanding and compassion. We often move through life believing we are separate individuals, isolated from one another, navigating our personal struggles, desires, and ambitions. We see ourselves as distinct entities, our own thoughts, our own bodies, our own lives. Yet beneath this surface of separateness lies a deeper truth: we are all profoundly interconnected. Everything we do, everything we experience is woven into the larger fabric of life, an intricate web that binds all beings, all things together. This interconnectedness is not just a philosophical idea, it is the very nature of existence. The air we breathe is shared by every living creature. The food we eat comes from the earth, nurtured by rain, sun, and soil. The thoughts we have, the actions we take, ripple out and affect the world in ways we may never fully understand. No one is truly isolated. Every individual is a thread in the vast, unfolding tapestry of the universe. When we recognize this, something profound happens. We begin to see ourselves in others. The boundaries between me and you start to dissolve, and we realize that the joys, the sorrows, the struggles we face are not uniquely our own. They are part of the collective human experience. The pain of another becomes our pain, just as the happiness of another becomes our joy. We are all expressions of the same life force, manifesting in different forms, yet deeply united. This awareness of interconnectedness invites us to live with greater compassion. When we understand that we are not separate, how can we harm another without harming ourselves? How can we turn a blind eye to suffering, knowing that the suffering of others reverberates through the same web that holds us all? In this way, interconnectedness calls us to act with kindness, to take responsibility not just for our own well-being, but for the well-being of all living things. At a deeper level, this interconnectedness extends beyond human beings. We are part of the natural world, inseparable from the earth, the water, the sky. The rhythms of nature flow through us just as the seasons change, so too do we. We are affected by the moon, the tides, the turning of the planet, just as much as we affect the world around us. When we lose sight of this connection, we begin to feel a sense of isolation. But in truth, we are never alone. The trees, the mountains, the rivers, they are all part of the same existence that animates us. In understanding this unity, we come to appreciate the beauty and fragility of life in all its forms. we begin to see that the well-being of one is tied to the well-being of all. The health of the planet, the harmony of ecosystems, the balance of nature, these are not external concerns but reflections of our own inner state. When we live in harmony with this interconnected web, we live in harmony with ourselves. This realization changes everything. It shifts the way we view the world, the way we interact with others, the way we perceive our own lives. We move from a mindset of competition and isolation to one of cooperation and empathy. Life becomes not a struggle for survival, but a shared journey toward deeper understanding and connection. In this awareness of interconnectedness, we find not only a sense of belonging, but a profound sense of purpose. We are here not as separate beings, but as part of something infinitely greater than ourselves. And in embracing that, we discover that every action, every choice, and every moment matters not just for us, but for the whole of life. Life is filled with opposites, light and dark, joy and sorrow, love and fear. From the moment we are born, we are introduced to this duality, experiencing one end of the spectrum while being aware of its counterpart. Our instinct is often to cling to the positive and avoid the negative, to chase happiness and shun suffering, to seek the light and run from the shadows. But in doing so, we miss a deeper truth that both sides of these dualities are essential to the fullness of life. We tend to see things as separate, as if happiness is entirely distinct from sadness or strength from weakness. But in reality, they are two aspects of the same coin. One cannot exist without the other. How could we know joy if we had never tasted sorrow? How would we recognize peace if we hadn't endured conflict? These dualities define one another. They are not enemies, but partners in the dance of existence. To embrace duality is to understand that life is not about eliminating one side in favor of the other, but about accepting both. There is no light without darkness, no birth without death, no growth without challenge. The interplay between opposites is what creates the richness of our experience. The highs are meaningful because we have known the lows. The moments of connection are profound because we have experienced isolation. This understanding invites us to stop resisting the darker moments of life. When we face difficulty, it is easy to fall into the trap of thinking something has gone wrong, that we must escape the pain as quickly as possible. But in truth, these moments are just as valuable as the ones filled with joy. They shape us, they deepen us, and they give texture to our existence. Just as a painter uses both light and shadow to create depth on a canvas, life uses duality to add depth to our journey. The nature of duality teaches us balance. It shows us that life is not about perpetual happiness, but about the ebb and flow between all states of being. When we understand this, we stop chasing one extreme and fearing the other. We begin to see that every experience, whether pleasant or painful, is part of the whole. Each moment, in its own way, contributes to our growth and understanding. Even within ourselves, we contain duality, strength and vulnerability, love and fear, wisdom and doubt. Often we struggle to reconcile these opposing forces, believing we must choose one over the other. But true wholeness comes when we accept all parts of ourselves. We are not meant to be one-dimensional. Our complexity is what makes us human. We are strong and weak, wise and confused, loving and fearful. And it is in this acceptance of our own duality that we find peace. Ultimately, duality is not something to be overcome, but something to be embraced. It is the natural rhythm of life, the pulse that moves us through every phase of our existence. By accepting both sides of this dance, we open ourselves to a deeper understanding of what it means to be alive. We stop fighting against the natural flow and start moving with it. We recognize that every light has its shadow, and every shadow holds the promise of light. In this, we find harmony. Not the harmony of a life free from conflict or challenge, but the harmony of a life fully lived with all its contrasts and contradictions. It is in this acceptance of duality that we discover the beauty of being whole. We no longer fear the dark, nor do we cling to the light. We simply allow ourselves to be part of the ever-changing, ever-balancing nature of existence. In a world that constantly pushes us to want more, to do more, and to be more, it's easy to lose sight of the profound richness found in simplicity. We are conditioned to believe that happiness lies in accumulation, whether it's material possessions, achievements, or experiences. We chase after the next big thing, always looking for something outside of ourselves to bring us fulfillment. But in that pursuit, we often overlook the simple, quiet moments that truly make life meaningful. Gratitude is the doorway to this deeper understanding. It shifts our focus from what we lack to what we already have. When we cultivate gratitude, we begin to see that the true treasures of life are often found in the everyday, in the things we take for granted. The warmth of the sun on our skin, the sound of laughter, the feeling of a loved one's embrace, these are the moments that hold real value. When we stop to appreciate them, we realize that we already have more than enough. Simplicity goes hand in hand with gratitude. It's about clearing away the excess, the noise, and the distractions, and returning to the essence of life. It's not about renouncing the world or giving up on ambition. It's about recognizing that the constant striving for more can blind us to the beauty of what is right in front of us. When we simplify, we make space for what truly matters: connection, presence, and inner peace. There's a deep richness in living simply, in letting go of the unnecessary and focusing on what brings real joy. It's not the latest gadget or the most luxurious experience that fills our hearts. It's the simple acts of kindness, the shared moments, and the awareness of life's fleeting beauty. When we strip away the layers of desire, we find that happiness isn't something to be chased. It's something that arises naturally when we are fully present and grateful for what is. Gratitude teaches us that life doesn't have to be extraordinary to be meaningful. In fact, it's often in the most ordinary moments that we find the deepest sense of contentment. When we are grateful, even the simplest things, a cup of tea, the sound of rain, a quiet afternoon, become sources of joy. And when we live with this kind of awareness, life becomes a celebration of the small, beautiful details that we might otherwise overlook. Simplicity also invites us to reconnect with ourselves and the world around us in a more meaningful way. When we strip away the distractions, we are able to tune into the present moment. We begin to notice the subtle rhythms of life, the changing of the seasons, the way a breeze moves through the trees. We reconnect with nature, with our bodies, and with the people we care about. In this slowing down, we find a deeper connection to life itself. In a culture that glorifies busyness and excess, simplicity is a radical act. It's a return to what is essential, a way of living that is grounded in appreciation rather than consumption. And with that return comes a profound sense of freedom. We are no longer caught in the endless cycle of wanting more, of seeking happiness outside of ourselves. Instead, we find peace in the present, in the here and now. Gratitude and simplicity remind us that we don't need to chase after life. Life is already here, offering itself to us in every moment. When we open our eyes to the gifts around us, when we let go of the unnecessary, we realize that the true richness of life is not something to be attained, it's something to be experienced. And in that experience, we find a kind of fulfillment that is deeper, more lasting, and more meaningful than anything we could ever acquire. In the end, life is not a puzzle to be solved, but a mystery to be lived. The lessons we've explored: letting go of control, embracing impermanence, being fully present, detaching from the ego, learning from suffering, recognizing our interconnectedness, understanding duality, and practicing gratitude and simplicity are not rigid rules to follow, but gentle reminders of the deeper truths that guide our existence. When we open ourselves to these lessons, we see that life flows with a rhythm beyond our control, yet within our capacity to embrace. We begin to understand that we are part of something much larger, connected not just to those around us, but to the entire cosmos. By accepting the dualities of joy and pain, light and shadow, we move beyond fear and resistance and into a place of peace. In this awareness, life becomes less about what we can attain and more about what we can experience, appreciate, and offer. And in that shift from striving to being, from wanting to appreciating, we find that life itself, in all its complexity and simplicity, is enough. These lessons, once truly understood, leave us transformed. We are no longer the same, for we have touched something deeper, something timeless. Life as it is becomes a profound gift, and in living these truths, we discover a freedom and contentment that can never be taken away.